Hello everyone, and welcome again to the Asylum online video series for LifePoint Church. Thank you again for watching and your continued support and dedication to being a part of the youth ministry here. And as we move along to our lesson, I just would hope that you guys would continue to stay committed, and whether it be online or even some of the activities we've been doing. So glad that some of you have participated with the quarantine picture scavenger hunt. I think it's great fun, and at some point here we will get things back up and running, just that you would continue to pray for the church and the ministry. That said, as I pointed out, this is the second lesson in the Keep Calm and Carry On series. Last week we started the series with a lesson on fear and anxiety and how those can be roadblocks to our commitment and focus to Christ in times of trouble. Now, we mentioned other things last week like anger and stress as also being roadblocks. So that said, we're actually going to be talking about when life makes us angry. Now, I love the question because I know I've said it myself, maybe you've said it, like, you make me so angry, or this makes me so angry. And quite honestly, that we have to choose to be angry. Nothing is making us angry. We must choose to be angry. And often that choice can make all the difference in how not only we respond, but what happens after that choice. So I think as we move along here, we've all had our lives where we've dealt with anger, maybe at someone or something or a situation. Maybe it's been sometimes life, people, situations like we said. But I think one of the other subjects is what happens when we are angry in our relationship with God. So I think a good question that would might follow that is anger wrong? So keep that question in the back of your mind for a moment, because I want to point out for the lesson, the focus, that we're talking about when we have anger, how do we deal with it when it happens? What do we do with it when it happens? So to that question, is anger wrong? Well, that's a pretty complicated answer, but I think if we're going to kind of give it its simplest form, the simplest answer is that it's not so much that it's wrong, it's what is our cause and what do we do with the anger when we have it. So what is the source of anger? Again, not making us. We must choose to be angry. And when we do choose to be angry, what do we do with that anger? So a question for you guys at home, and I realize, again, this might be not so easy, and hopefully it is. Talk a little bit about some of these things at home, and just be open up and sharing, be authentic with one another, and or at least take a try at it. And what are some things that make you mad or angry? How often do you find yourself being angry over those things? Take a moment to answer, and again, try to be as open and transparent as possible. And try not to get angry while you do it. Are we all good? Oh, great. You may recall that in the scriptures we see even Christ get angry from time to time. He got angry at people, situations, and even his own disciples at times. You would too, because let's read the scriptures and let's be honest, some of those guys didn't quite get it. To that point, let's talk about some scripture. John chapter 2, 13 through 17. When it was time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at money-changing tables. So he made a whip of cords, and he drove all of them from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle, and he scattered the coins from the tables, and then he turned those tables over. To the people who sold the doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So now the truth is that Jesus was angry at the leaders of the church because they were using the church to take advantage of the people, take advantage of others. And because these people weren't being truly cared for by these money-changing people, by these sellers of goods, they weren't being really taken care of. They were taking advantage of them. So Jesus' anger was a righteous anger. He said, this is an injustice not only of money, but of a spiritual matter, because in Jesus' time it was necessary to have these animals for sacrifice. So Jesus needed to right this wrong. So he used this anger as motivation to correct the circumstance. So many of us, I think if we're honest, get angry at our parents and friends, teachers, maybe people at school. And I understand we're not at school right now, but I think if you look back, there have been people that made you angry at school. But not just that, but it's also circumstances. Case in point, let's look at our own circumstance right now. We're going to come back to that here in a moment. But think about how that plays into our current situation. At times of anger, I think sometimes we can be a little selfish. I think, again, if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that make us angry come out of a place of selfishness or even pride. And I think that if we're fair to ourselves and honest with ourselves, I know for myself, thinking back, dealing with anger with my sibling, it was usually over something very small, trivial. But anger itself is not the problem. It's what causes the anger and how we choose to respond. Now, earlier I said, what do we do with that anger? Well, that's a type of response. And with response, that's the thing that, when we're angry, that's the thing that people are going to look at. That's what they're going to observe in a public sense, in a public setting, that when we deal with anger around others, they're going to see that. But that's also what communicates our faith. People are going to see us in times of struggle, and they're going to see how we respond. If we claim to be a Christian, if we claim to follow Christ, they're going to try and examine how we deal with it. And that is a perfect way to communicate our faith. Again, keep in mind our current circumstance, how we as followers of Christ are dealing with the circumstances around us. Let's look at another scripture that backs this up. Ephesians 4:22 through 27. You were taught, with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. This is the one part I really think is appropriate and really directs to us what needs to happen. Verse 26, in your anger do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on us while we are still angry. Which is to say, don't carry it with you. Verse 27, and do not give the devil a foothold. So if we hold on to that, if we let the sun go down, if we carry it from day to day, that's an invitation for Satan to come in and use it against us and against those around us. Also, I want to point out verse 31. The passage is amazing. I would ask that you continue to read it. But in verse 31, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every other form of malice. Now, you'll see I highlighted, I underlined these terms because I think for me, bitterness is just this continued, just carried out anger. And when we have bitterness, when we hold on to such anger for so long, not only does it kind of, in a way, corrupt us, but it certainly keeps our gaze from being on Christ and shifts it over to whatever the source of that anger has been, a person, a situation. For some people, it has been even God, because they've not come to terms with dealing with that anger, that confusion, that frustration, and they never handed it over to God. But whatever that is, when we hold on to bitterness, it shifts our gaze and puts it on, rather than Christ and who it should be on, it puts it on a person, a situation. And so when we carry that around, we become ineffective completely for the kingdom. So in moments of anger, frustration, or even bitterness, it is difficult to slow things down and stop ourselves from sinning. I think that's one of the real struggles here, is that we need to understand that it's not easy to just stop being angry. No one's saying that. But if we continue on, one thing that will definitely happen is that we will find ourselves in a place where we will be tempted to sin. So I think many times when we feel angry, we feel this almost uncontrollable need to react or respond, some way to release that anger. Maybe that's blowing up at somebody. Maybe that's having a quick temper. Maybe that's even I have found that we put blame where it doesn't really belong. We find faults here and here and here. So we begin to carry this anger and put it on places where it doesn't truly belong. And again, I come back to it again. Take our current circumstance. Has anything in this situation or circumstance caused you to be angry? Has it caused you to turn your focus on where it shouldn't? It's a very human thing to do. I know I've in some way, shape, or form I've done it. But that's part of the challenge. So what can we do about it? What are some ways that we can deal with this anger? What are some ways that we can encourage one another? Well, when angry, pray through it. Ask God to change your heart, and if you are seeing it wrong, or that He would show you how He needs you to see it. Okay? So that's a prayer issue. Ask God, are you seeing this the right way? Is there another perspective that He has that you don't? Odds are, there is. Some other methods to deal with anger. Seek another perspective. So in prayer we seek God's perspective, but let's seek another perspective from another adult, leader, mentor, and tell them what's going on. Ask for their thoughts and to see if there's another way of seeing things. Again, just having a fresh pair of eyes on a situation can really shed some light on how to deal with it. Number 3, and this is the most challenging because we can often be so very prideful, but we need to ask for help. We don't have to feel like we're going through this whole situation alone. And again, look at this whole circumstance. We are not alone, nor do we deal with it alone. We're not meant to deal with it alone. We look through a situation alone. Grab a solid, and this is important, grab a solid Christian friend or leader or mentor. And by and with social distancing, don't grab, but contact in some way, shape, or form, and just say, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm dealing with, I have such a huge amount of anger, or whatever, and just ask for their help. Often that help will come in prayer, yes, but you have a person interested in your physical and spiritual health, willing to hear and listen to what you're going through. And that this person would continue to walk through the situation with you, which means it's not just a quick prayer and done, but that this is an ongoing conversation. And again, that's kind of one of the benefits of being in person. But since we don't have that opportunity right now, we need to be creative in finding ways to really connect with others. And so that's why we do this video series, and that's why we're even talking on this subject. So with that, I'm going to close and just pray that this message has reached you in some way, shape, or form. If you've dealt with anger or any of the other roadblocks in these past few weeks, maybe not even related to the coronavirus, but some other subject. I pray that this message would reach you and help you, and that you would continue to pray for one another during this time in all ways, shapes, and forms, and not just with, again, the things that are going on out there, because let's face it, once this is all said and done, there will be other issues to deal with and tackle. So just continue to pray for one another in the ministry, and I just thank you and wish you all a good day and a good night.